Are you really surprised? Knuckleheads, are you really shocked if you're a boxing fan, if you've been following Caleb Plant for a while now, if you've noticed the way he fights and notice how active he is in the first half of his fights, how much energy he expends in the first half of his fights, how much energy it takes to maintain that style in the first 5 or 6 rounds when he's fighting, right? He's very sharp. He's very athletic. He's very fast twitch. He's moving around a lot. He's using the real estate in that ring. He's trying to hit you with stuff that matters. Are you really shocked? Subsequent to his performance against Canelo Alvarez, where he got stopped closer to the end of the fight, subsequent to his performance against the monster, David Benavidez, when he also started to succumb later in the fight, subsequent, to a very lackluster performance, if you ask me, against a guy in Trevor McCumbee who probably didn't deserve to be in there with him, or so we thought prior to that fight, right? And now you've got Armando El Toro Resendiz, knuckleheads, a guy who's a complete and utter problem when it comes to guys who have any sort of issues with fading. You've got a guy, not only in Armando Resendiz, who can keep going like the Energizer Bunny, baby, but he's also trained now by Manny Robles. And allow me to please remind you that Manny Robles not only comes from a boxing lineage and is a fighter himself, and so was his son for a time, a very successful one at that. Manny Robles also helped to guide Andy Ruiz to becoming the first ever Mexican heavyweight champion of the world. That's no laughing matter. That's no sort of task that could be minimalized. The things that Manny Robles has done in this sport are just absolutely amazing. And this kid, Resendiz, has shown his potential before. When he KO'd Jarrett Hurd, who was still pretty good at the time, and now he's done this against Caleb Plant, a guy who's been at or near the top of his division for many years, a guy who gave Canelo a good fight up until that 11th round when Canelo stopped him. But it's either one of two things, or it could be both. It's either that Armando Resendiz is just a very problematic fighting style for Caleb Plant, who has issues with cardio, okay, especially as he goes on to the second half of the fight because his style takes so much energy. Nothing against him. It's just a tough style to maintain. Or it could be that Caleb Plant, at just 32 years of age, has got a lot of miles on the odometer. We're talking about a guy who was a champion. We're talking about a guy also who fought Canelo, who fought David Benavidez, a guy who was a former kickboxer in a previous life, a guy who's been fighting for a very, very long time at a very high level and taking a lot of punishment. He took a lot of punishment in that Benavidez fight. He took punishment in the McCumbee fight. He got stopped by Canelo Alvarez. And so it could be, I don't want to say we've seen the end of Caleb Plant, but it could be from what we saw tonight, if you ask me, and I don't want it because I really enjoy Caleb Plant. I'm a big fan of Caleb Plant. I'm a big fan of his style, his story. I'm a former IKF kickboxing promoter, and he's a former IKF kickboxing champion, big fan. But it could be, knuckleheads, that we have seen the end of Caleb Plant at the elite level of the sport of boxing, if you ask me, because if you can't get the job done against Armando Resendiz after putting up the performance you did against Canelo Alvarez, after putting up the performance you did for the time being against David Benavidez, you're not, and then what we saw against Trevor McCumbee, right? A guy who doesn't really belong in that top tier, if we're being honest. it looks to me like Caleb Plant is in the twilight of his career, which is unfortunate at the age of 32 because I really enjoy this guy's style. I enjoyed his career. He once again looked pretty good at the beginning of the fight, but he doesn't have, I don't think he has it anymore, what it takes to continue on fighting the way he's fighting at the beginning of the fight, continue that for 12 rounds, and he's going to run into a lot of problems. He's going to run into a lot of problems if he continues to try to fight at the upper echelon of the division. Now, I'm sure he will. I'm sure he'll want to, and I'm sure Charlo, who looked good on the undercard, is going to still want that fight to try to retire him, right? With the history that they have, with that big slap, that big Ric Flair slap he gave him. But it's looking like it would be a serious mismatch at this point because Charlo looked like he's still got something left, and Plant only looked like he had something left for the first few rounds. Now, again, no disrespect at all to Caleb Plant. I mean, this is a fighter that I really enjoy. This is a fighter whose story is fantastic and inspirational. But, you know, we got to call a spade here, knuckleheads. This is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about boxing, the Fighters Rep. So subscribe, join the channel. Leave your comments in the live chat. I would love to hear what you guys thought about this fight. I'd love to hear what you think about this fight, right? We can go back and forth all day about it. But this is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And you got to call a spade. And Caleb Plant just doesn't look like the Caleb Plant of old anymore. And I've been concerned about this since the beating he took from Benavidez. Heck, I was starting to get concerned at the Canelo fight because that was a pretty bad stoppage, you know, to get stopped at the end of a fight like that. That takes a lot out of you. Then getting beat up by Benavidez, right, especially in the end of that fight, takes a lot out of you. Then Trevor McCumbee is hurting him. That's when I really got concerned. That's when it took a turn for the worse. And if you ask me, Armando El Toro Resendiz has ascended upwards, and he may have retired Caleb Plant, at least from the upper echelon of the division. Resendiz looked fantastic. You know, when you got Manny Robles in your corner, it's a blessing. It's a superpower. It's like you got another guy in there with you. I went to Manny Robles' gym just a couple weeks ago. I mean, the stuff he is doing out there, the work ethic. Knuckleheads, people talk about Mexican-American work ethic. You ain't seen nothing till you seen Manny Robles. I mean, I saw him, right, with my own eyes here. And I'm a pretty hard worker myself, if I'm being honest with you guys. I've been working my whole life like an animal. I watched Manny Robles in his gym a couple weeks ago, preparing for this fight. He actually told me I could have interviewed Toro and Mizuki, which is the WBO female, I believe, flyweight or super flyweight champ. He was just... It was like a Shark Tank, right? I think that's what they call it, the Shark Tank. When the guy gets tired, he goes out or they have a sparring for you, you know, and you're in there sparring for a fight, and they put a fresh fighter in there for a couple rounds. They take him out. They put another fresh fighter in there a couple rounds. They take him out, and they keep doing that over and over again to work on your stamina, to give you different looks. That's what Manny Robles was doing as a coach, holding mitts. I mean, it was sensational. And I told him, man, you're a machine. You're a machine. And you don't get to where Manny Robles got. You don't get the ability to create champions the way Manny Robles does, you know, screwing around, twiddling your thumbs. You got to go in there and put in the work. And he put in the work. And Resendiz did the right thing going to Manny Robles, who's extracting every last bit of talent out of him. He's extracting every last drop of talent out of this tough Mexican kid. And that's all Resendiz did in this fight. I'm not saying he's not technical at all, but this was a stereotypical American versus Mexican fighter. By the way, leave any of your comments in the comment section or in the live chat. I'd love to hear what you guys thought about this fight. This was your stereotypical American versus Mexican style fight, right? With Caleb Plant being, the flashy, movie, a lot of movement, kind of American slick is what we call it, and Toro Resendiz being the Toro, just coming forward, guard up high, dig into the body, not putting everything on every blow, but putting that pace on Plant, the same pace that just wouldn't lit up, and he's just loose. And when Plant would land on him, it had no effect. And I think that was also part of what was taking Caleb Plant's stamina away, right? Is that when he was landing shots on Resendiz, there was no real reaction, especially as the fight progressed. I think rounds 4 and 5 on, Caleb Plant, whenever he would land the fight, I saw him land what looked to be, at one point, right, a low blow that may have even been intentional just to try to peel this guy off of him. And I saw Resendiz have no reaction to it. And I said to myself, when I saw that, and I saw Resendiz's reaction or complete lack thereof, I said to myself, this is going to be a huge problem for Caleb Sweet Hands Plant. This is going to be a huge problem because it's Plants versus zombies at this point. Knuckleheads, not sure you guys ever played that game. It was Plants versus zombies. And with every shot and with every step forward, Plant was wilting away, pun intended. And El Toro was just coming forward, doing what a Toro does. Coming forward. Now, the fact that one of the judges scored this bout, and that's David Sutherland, scored this bout for Caleb Plant, 115-113, because this ended up being a split decision in Armando Resendiz's favor. The fact that a judge saw this fight for Caleb Plant, for me, right, if I were the man in charge of the commission, would prompt me to say, please write down in detail what you were looking at that made you consider or made you believe that Caleb Plant won that fight over the course of 12 rounds, 115-113, because I need an explanation for that, especially when your colleagues who are seated across from you or to the side of you, and I'm talking about the other two judges, scored it exactly the same, 116-112 for El Toro Resendiz. I mean, what is it that they were watching that you were unable to see, scoring it 115-113 for Caleb Plant when he was absolutely just getting walked down in there for the majority of the fight? Somebody help me understand. If there's somebody in the chat, there's a few of you in here right now, drop it in the chat. Help me understand. If you scored it for Caleb Plant, how is that possible? I'm losing my fez over here trying to think about it. How did you score that for Caleb Plant? I have no idea. Listen, we got to do something maybe about these judges and getting them some more training, perhaps. I don't know what's going on, but that was an absolutely wild score. Nonetheless, we did luck out in that the right man won. And the right man winning was Armando El Toro Resendiz. And I'm excited to see what he comes up with next, right? Because he's got a difficult style to deal with, albeit it's pretty simple. But it's a difficult style in that if you don't have your cardio on fleek, on point, right? Like the kids say, you're in for a long night. You're in for a very long night. And I'll say this, any sort of technical adjustments, tweaks that can be made for this young man from Guayabitos, Nayarit, Mexico, right? Any changes that could be made by the genius that is Manny Robles, they will be made. And I saw this kid changing levels. I saw him going to the body. I saw him fighting inside and adjusting when Caleb Plant was trying to smother him and hold him. I saw him hurt Plant really bad with some inside right hands when he was trying to smother him and hold him. And you can't play that game with this kid maybe before he got to Manny Robles, maybe before he started to get educated in the art of fighting by a genius tactician in Manny Robles, who I'm going to have to interview after this. Maybe before you could have played that game with him. You can't play that game with this kid anymore. And get this. Get this. He's only 26 years old. He's only 26 years old. He's 16-2 now. And he just beat Caleb Plant. And he beat him handily. I mean, this wasn't for me. I'm not, what's his name, Sutherland. I'm not David Sutherland at all. I'm not David Sutherland. I don't want to be David Sutherland. I'm not David Sutherland. I'm the FightersRep Fez, baby. It's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God, right? There's no way. I mean, he beat him handily. Shout out to Champy in the chat. He says, even though you lose, taking tough fights can make you better, especially if you're a young fighter. That Elijah Garcia loss could have helped him. I think you're absolutely right. And you know what's very interesting about that, Champy? I'm glad you bring that up. Elijah Garcia, right, must have some difficult style to deal with, right? Because, and by the way, Elijah Garcia lost his fight against Kyron Davis, but he won his most recent fight against Terrell Gausha. And I say that because Terrell Gausha is a stablemate of Armando Resendiz in that they both train with Manny Robles. And for me, Terrell Gausha, look, he's had several losses. I want to bring him up, right? Terrell Gausha has had 5 losses. He's 24-5-1. He won that, or he lost that fight against Garcia by split decision. But he's another guy. He's another guy who's had losses under his belt, just like you said, Champy. By the way, subscribe if you haven't already. Appreciate you being here. He's another guy that has picked up losses along the way that I feel, even though Gausha's been around a long time, could potentially still win at a high level because he consistently hones his craft and is constantly trying to get better and is there with Manny Robles. And Manny Robles could probably do it again with Andy Ruiz too if Ruiz was up to it. Not too long ago, I heard Ruiz was headed back to Manny Robles, the guy who took him to the mountaintop. But now, most recently, I heard from Manny Robles, all he said was, and he's a very polite, respectful man is Manny Robles. You know, even if you disrespect him, you know, he's not, you're going to know, I have a feeling you're going to know, but he's not going to say it out loud. That being said, he says he hasn't heard from Andy Ruiz. You know, anyone who goes to Manny Robles always has a shot, man. I even think of Prince Charles Martin, man, the heavyweight. You know, the guy was a champ for a little bit, got stopped by Anthony Joshua. People wrote him off, and then he started coming back. And then he was back in the title picture. And it's almost like, you know, a lot of these fighters that people forget about, and I think a lot of people would have probably wrote off Resendiz because he's got 2 losses on his card. They go to Manny Robles, and they're able to, you know, they're able to come back up. They're able to come back up. By the way, Champy, that is a freaking awesome logo you got there. That's some sort of, it looks like a half calavera, half cat, which is very cool. So shout out to you for having that. By the way, guys, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, join the channel. It's just $9.99 a month. Help me to continue to grow this thing. You know, I try to drop content daily for you guys, whether it's funny, whether it's entertaining. Typically, it's about boxing. That's what we talk about. We are a fight fraternity here at FightersRep. We got each other's back. It's like, it's a fraternity. That's what it is. And we talk boxing. And once in a while, we'll touch on other sports, but we concentrate on boxing. I give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God about boxing, because I'm a former promoter and I'm a lawyer. And I like to think that those two things have given me quite a bit of insight on the sport, and allow me to explain things to you guys maybe in a way that's a bit better than other people. Arizona Wildcats, baby. That's very cool, champion. That's very cool, man. So, back to the entree here, right? Back to the main course, the main event, if you will. Caleb Plant, in my opinion, not completely out of the boxing game, but I think we just watched his last fight at the upper levels, in the upper crust, right? In the upper crust of the super middleweight division. And get this, Resendiz claims an interim WBA super middleweight title. Interim WBA super middleweight title at 26 years of age, with a record of 16-2. With a record of 16-2. Sí se puede, man. Sí se puede. I mean, I love it. I love it. And, I was thinking about this, right? Because I was a kickboxing promoter, and I also promoted MMA for a long time. And I always thought to myself, maybe it seems obvious, but I always thought to myself, what is it that makes boxers a harder sell, or makes it better than saying a harder sell? What is it that makes it more difficult for them to come back after they've been defeated? Is it a difference in the punishment they're taking? Is it the culture of boxing expects you to be undefeated, or otherwise they're just going to cast you by the wayside? I think it's a mix of those two, right? Because let's talk about the culture thing, right? Getting cast by the wayside. In MMA, you're expected to lose. In MMA, if you're undefeated, typically you just haven't really challenged yourself. In kickboxing, you're expected to lose, and there's so many ways to lose. But in boxing, besides the culture, right, being built around this undefeated, this worshiping of this the number 0, which shout out, I believe the Mayans invented it independently. Also, and the Arabs did as well. This number 0, this concept of 0. There's a worship of this concept of 0. And it shouldn't be worshipped, right? So culturally, I think that takes its toll mentally on fighters, especially boxers who try to come back from a defeat, right? And they're not able to do so the way a lot of these MMA guys are and a lot of these kickboxers are. Now, the other side of it, right, why I think they have a difficult time coming back after a loss, boxers specifically, is because of the punishment that they take, right? When you compare it to MMA or kickboxing, you're talking about 3 rounds for a regular fight, 5 minutes each, or 5 rounds versus 12 rounds of sustained punishment to the head and to the torso. That's it. In a kickboxing bout versus a boxing bout, for example, it's 3 rounds, right? 3 rounds. You can get hit anywhere in the body, legs. You can get a leg kick knockout. You can get hit in the arm. You can get hit in the, you can get kicked anywhere. You get in the thigh and the calf. With boxing, you're just taking shots to the head. I mean, you're just taking shots to the head over and over and over again. And so I think the combination between the punishment, the way it's being absorbed, and the culture of boxing, which expects and worships this undefeated record, right? I think that's what makes it so hard for boxers to come back when they've lost. And when they do, it's so impressive. It's so impressive. And so a guy like Resendiz coming back and winning an interim WBA super middleweight title over the likes of a Caleb Plant, who put together a great performance against a guy like Canelo Alvarez and David Benavidez. It's a beautiful thing to watch. Sad for me to watch Caleb Plant because I think he's a great personality. But that was rough. That was rough, but great for Toro. So, somebody comes up, somebody goes down. Do you guys think? Let me know. Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comment section. Do you think that Caleb Plant is done? Or do you think, like I do, that he's done at least in the upper echelons of the division or of boxing? I don't think, maybe he gets another big fight, but I don't think he wins it. I think it's hard. Thanks for touching on the O subject. It's my least favorite thing about this era in boxing. Well, you're probably a hardcore fight fan like I am, Champy, and I appreciate you, my brother. Guys, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Join Knucklehead Nation. I could use you guys on my team. We could use each other. We look out for each other as part of Knucklehead Nation. That's what we do. We are a fight fraternity. We look out for each other emotionally, personally, hell, even financially if we have to. We look out for each other. Ryu Kant says, do you think Plant is shot? Usually fighters fall off a cliff when they are done. Ryu, Ken, I do think, I don't want to say shot because it's such like a negative term, but I do think his time in the limelight at the top of the division or anywhere near it is gone. It's over. We just got to accept that fact, in my opinion. It's gone. It's over. And I don't think he fell off a cliff, to be fair, right? I do think that his cardio tends to fall off a cliff in the middle rounds. So that's a, that's a fun little metaphor you came up with that we can use there, falling off of a cliff, because it applies to his cardio. And heck, it may be that he did fall off a cliff, but I just think it's happened gradually, right? We saw it with Canelo Alvarez in their fight where he was given a really good account of himself, and then at the end he got stopped. And then we saw it with David Benavidez, who I predicted to beat Caleb Plant just because I think he's a better boxer. And we saw it with David Benavidez, right? Where at the end of the fight, after the first 3, 4, 5 rounds, he just came undone. And the reason I believe, and a lot of you will disagree with me because a lot of people, they conflate. This is something I don't do because I am a hardcore fight fan and I got a lot of friends in this thing of ours, this fight thing of ours, and I've been watching for a long time and even training. One thing I don't do is conflate athleticism with skill. Caleb Plant's got athleticism, but as far as his technique and his skill goes, I think he's got it, but I don't think he's got what David Benavidez has got. That's why I thought Benavidez would win the fight, and I was right. I thought his athleticism would keep him in the fight, and it did, but Benavidez was the superior boxer, which a lot of people to this day won't admit. They think Caleb Plant got tired, and that's why Benavidez beat him. No. Benavidez will beat you because he's the superior fighter and can maintain his technique over the course of 12 rounds. Caleb Plant, as great of an athlete as he is, cannot maintain that against a superior, more technically sound fighter over the course of 12 rounds, and that's what happened there. So do I think he's shot? I don't like to use that term, man, but I do think I do think he is. I hope we still see him in there, but it's kind of like, it's the same way you kind of, I don't know if you guys ever watched the Miami Dolphins, born and raised in Miami. I was a big Dolphins fan. It's kind of the way I kept hoping that Dan Marino would win a Super Bowl, and it never happened. It never happened. And Ray Finkel didn't help out. I hope you guys can get that joke. But yeah, I feel bad. I want to see him do well. I think he's a great personality. I think he's great for the sport. I do hope if he exits the sport, he continues to do something within the sport, because he definitely has a lot of skill, whether it's coaching, whether it's commentating, whatever it is. But I just think Caleb Plant at this point, if you were to tell me, is he in the upper echelon of the super middleweight division, I'm going to say no. After tonight, it's got to be a no. You lost to a 26-year-old that's 16-2. You're just not there anymore. And then Ryu, you're right. You're saying he looked a step slower, which at 32 is to be fair, is expected for the most part, unless you're cheating or, you've got some great genetics. And then he's taken a lot of damage. I mean, he really has. I said that earlier on in the chat, and you're absolutely right, Ryu. He's taken a lot of damage. Think about the damage he's taken throughout his career. The Canelo fight was rough. The David Benavidez fight was rough. And I brought it up earlier, even the Trevor McCumbee fight. Trevor was landing some big shots, and it was, it was tough. It was tough to watch. Off topic, but I know you watch kickboxing. Have you seen the Muay Thai phenom Nabil Anani? He's the Fedora of Muay Thai, like 6'3", 145 or something. I don't think I've seen him. I've kind of stepped away from kickboxing since I stopped promoting in November. And I just had to kind of take a break from it because, man, if I'm being honest with you guys, I mean, dealing with the fighters was just such a headache, especially this generation for whatever reason. I mean, people are very entitled. They don't abide by their end of the bargain. They don't show up. I mean, I'll be honest with you, for a couple years before November, I wanted to stop doing it, but I was kind of just staying in it because I felt like it was a service to the community, to these young fighters. But I wanted to leave for a long time because gradually I started to see more and more, and it started to wear on me, the pullout rate, the lack of dedication. For me, that was the biggest thing, the lack of dedication. For example, every card I put together, over the course of matching up until the day of the fight, 50% of the card would pull out. I mean, that was typical. And I just said to myself, I'm over here risking all my money, wasting all my time, and these guys are pulling out left and right. So I got tired of rolling the dice, putting my money up for a community that just didn't seem to have the dedication that I was looking for anymore. But I haven't seen Nabil Anani. It sounds like an Arabic name. I mean, I'm wondering if he's Moroccan. 6'3", 135 is pretty insane. We actually had a champion at FightersRep, Evan Bolton, who's continuing to fight until this day. I think you guys might see him at some point in Glory or in 1FC or whatever it is. Evan Bolton is, I want to say 6'3", 6'4", and he's a 147-pounder from right here in Long Beach, California. Very impressive young man. I want to say he was maybe a 2-division FightersRep kickboxing champion. Ryuken says, yup, half Moroccan, half Thai. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, the North African Arab countries, especially, I think all the Arab countries, but especially in North Africa, kickboxing is really ingrained in the Moroccan culture. They're very, very good kickboxers, very good athletes, very tough. And so shout out to them. Much love, man, to my Moroccan brothers and sisters. I'll check him out, man. I appreciate you bringing him up, right? You can. But listen, I appreciate you guys joining me. If you guys like what I'm doing, I ask that you please subscribe to the channel, join the channel. I want to get out this rat race, man, this full-time job's kind of driving me crazy. I've been wanting to do it for years and be more consistent on here, and I'm going for it. I'm going for it. I'm going to bring you guys the best content I can bring you. I'm going to be dropping content every day. So I do ask that you guys join, subscribe to the channel, get you some FightersRep merchandise in the links below. And if you join the channel, man, you have access, man. You have access to me, and we can, help each other out any way, any way that you guys might need to within reason. But anyway, I appreciate you guys joining me. Hope you guys have a fantastic night. Let me know in the comment section what you thought about this fight. Were you really shocked about the result? I'll be honest with you, I wasn't. I wasn't really shocked with this result. I saw this. I almost feel like I saw this coming. I wish I would have done a prediction video. Maybe I would have predicted Caleb Plant, but I knew it was going to be very close because I know how much of a problem this Resendiz kid is. I know what Caleb Plant's been looking like lately, and I know when you got Manny Robles in your corner, you've always got a chance, man. Tyco TV, what's up, brother? Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you guys being in here. You guys have a great night. Much love.